We are talking defense, and the numbers are very interesting.
You are Locked On Huskers, your daily podcast on the Nebraska Cornhuskers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's get it. There's lots to talk about. I'm DP, and thank you for making Locked On Huskers your first watch and listen each and every single day. I want to thank you every day, folks. You folks who show up. You show up in the comments. You show up in the likes, and you guys have subscribed, and it is greatly appreciated. Thank you for your kindness. Greatly appreciate it. I want to thank the folks from Built Bar. Now, a churro, peanut butter, brownie, cookies and cream, they've got the bar for you. They're healthy. They're good. If you need a place, Sam's Club, they carry it, or you can go to built.com and you can order it there. Boxes of 13 or so. Not saying that's the right number. You might want to do more than that, but they've got sample sizes, lots of variety. Jump on built.com. Over the course of this episode, I want to talk about the defensive side of the ball and the numbers, because as Nebraska sits at 92, today you had Stephon Wynn, who started games for the Huskers last year, Braxton Clark, and I have my 49ers moment there, Braxton Clark, who with his length and his athletic ability, I thought would have a better career at Nebraska, and I imagine that so did he, but both entered the transfer portal. And that puts the numbers for Nebraska at 92. Again, they've got to get to 85 and then probably under 85 if you don't feel like the group in question has enough talent for you to have success this season. And that's a part. Remember that the roster has to be built to beat Minnesota. Like if this player that's under scholarship currently can't help you beat Minnesota. Now, with freshmen, some of that is, okay, we made the commitment, we recruited you, we offered this, we'll ride with it. Because some of those would be some of Matt Rule's people, his actual recruits and people in place. So some of those would be in play. But for returning players, you have to ask yourself a question. As a coach and as a fan, you ask yourself the question, can this player help me win this year? Are they good enough? Do we have enough talent in this room this year to win now? And do I have enough reserve in the tank so that when this year goes through, I have a year's worth of development to work from? So the freshman players and the redshirt freshmen, those are developmental players. If you're getting any actual run from them this year, it's a bonus. And it's a really good sign. So for the freshmen and the redshirt freshmen that are considered valuable parts of the 2023 Husker football team, bravo. It's a huge win. But when you talk about the numbers now, there are 46 defensive players under scholarship after Wynn and Clark hit the transfer portal. 46. In most schools, 82 is the number outside of special teams. 82. 41 on each side of the ball. 41 on either side of the ball. Currently, Nebraska has 46. They've also got to remove, again, 7 to get you to 85, offense or defense, and then that number again for under 85 so that you can bring in new players. So this coaching staff has its hands full. Hands full. We'll start in the back of the defense because, again, if Braxton Clark decide to jump, the safeties. Now, of the 46 players, 21 are in the secondary. 21. Now, remember, because Nebraska uses, they're going to use a different type of players for different skill sets. Okay. And then the filling for special teams, right? Special teams matter, and defensive backs make great special teams players. right? Great. You need them for the return teams. It's a big part of it. Like, you're not going to put them on the kickoff team unless it's as a returner. On the kick return team unless it's as a returner. You're not generally going to have corners out there blocking for offensive players. That's generally a sign. But 21 defensive backs, 11 safeties. Now, there are 0 seniors in the safety room. 0. Now, remember the old adage, great programs get old and stay old. There are 0 seniors in this room. But Miles Farmer, Marcus Buford, Deshaun Singleton, Isaac Gifford, Buda Wright, Noah Pola Gates. That's 6 right there. And I can tell you that all 6 of them would be able to put in minutes on special teams. Okay, Buda Wright can play several positions on the field. Is great on the punt block team. Like, it's a thing. Noah Pola Gates is penciled in. You see him in high reps on special teams. Now, not making any promises of commitment, because a lot of folks who thought they were in good space entered the transfer portal after the spring game. That's just how it works. So 6 juniors. There are 2 sophomores, Kobe Bretz and Corey Collier. I would feel slightly uncomfortable because you have 2 sophomores and 2 redshirt freshmen. Gage Stanger, we saw a ton of in the spring game, making special teams plays and then making plays on defense. And Jalil Martin is a player that the coaching staff talks about in high rate. Ramir Stewart is the only freshman in this group, the only true freshman. Jalil Martin and Gage Stanger are redshirt freshmen. 11. I would think that number goes to 10. And if it doesn't go to 10, then the next group has to go down a number at least. Now, if you said you were starting the season with the 8 elder statesmen, Farmer, Buford, Gates, Singleton, Gifford, and Buda Wright, I think most Husker fans feel pretty good about that. And then Buda's had injury issues. Gifford is transforming his body. He looks like a different player. But all that's in play. If you go to the cornerback room, there are 2 seniors, Omar Brown and Quentin Newsom. Now, I base this conversation on conversations that have been had through spring practice and up to the spring game. Omar Brown is the coach's favorite. They love the way his energy. They love his coachability. The same for Quentin Newsom. Tommy Hill has, as he transferred in, started as a corner last year and then transferred over to wide receiver, back to cornerback this year. Javier Morton, Taman Lynham, those 2 probably had a very stressful week because the other sophomore is Malcolm Hartzell, who is the best defensive back on this team. Period. There are 4 freshmen. Dwight Boodle, who they love. Sincere Safuela, Ethan Nathan, and DeAndre Barnes. The freshmen, I would think that the freshmen are pretty safe because commitments were made, and there was a reason why those commitments were made. But 21 defensive backs. 19 or 20 seems to be the number, even if you like what you have. We'll put a pin there. And when we come back, we'll go to the big boys and those run and hit guys. Those numbers are important as well. We'll get to that on the defensive side of the ball. Hey, gang, welcome back to Locked On Huskers. Thank you once again for making Locked On Huskers your first watch and listen each and every single day. Greatly appreciate it. Again, this is the time of year. So Thursday, NFL draft, NFL mock draft. There's a special on the Locked On Sports Network. Find out, you can track the Huskers, you can track your favorite pro teams. You can do that on YouTube or however else you consume your podcast. We're talking defense, and again, the numbers are just as a coach, cut day is always tough. It's tough. That's why pro teams remove the coaches from it and they give it the title to some guy, and that guy becomes Turk. And Turk is the most feared man in all of pro football. In college, a lot more of this is done face to face and in the room, and discussions over real life discussions over a player's potential and place in a program. Like, where do I fit in, coach? Do I fit in? Can I help you? And if I can't, then can you help me? And those are the discussions that happen. And those conversations are tough. Like, these are reality checks. These are, hey, listen, I can love you and still say that I don't have room for you. And the truth is, most coaches would love to have 100 scholarships, because if they did, they'd be in this boat with 110 people and have to make cuts again. But a transitional program and with a transitional staff means a transitional roster, and it's showing up in full right here at Nebraska. Now, we talked about the defensive back room. We talked about the safeties and the cornerbacks, but the linebacker room, and again, the number is 13. And if you tell me I've got to consider special teams, I've got to consider depth. This is the Big Ten conference, so physical football is necessary. Extra linebackers are going to be used in the 3-3-5. Different players are asked to do different things. So that's in play. 13 linebackers, and there's one senior. Luke Reimer is the only senior on this scholarship staff. Nick Heinrich is a junior. MJ Sherman is a junior, and Garrett Snodgrass is a junior. Those four veteran guys who can move, and you would think there's some accountability and responsibility in dealing with it. Then you go to the sophomores, and this is a stacked set. Jamari Butler, who, if memory serves me right, actually jumped in the transfer portal and then jumped back to Nebraska. It's there. Mekhi Gabair, who got a ton of work at the spring game. Randolph Kapai, ton of work. Same thing in place. Seth Malcolm, who was brought in, pretty good understanding, but brought in by this coaching staff. Chief Borders, locally popular on the team, popular on social media. Kane Williams is an X factor, because from a physicality standpoint, what the Huskers like about Kane might be worth the investment. But that's 10. That's 10 linebackers. There are 3 freshmen. Maverick Noonan isn't going anywhere. That's a name. It's a legacy, not going anywhere. Dylan Rogers, not going anywhere. Eric Phil's not going anywhere. So 13 linebackers. And so I would assume that there will be an adjustment in this room. The defensive line group got its adjustment today. It got the first adjustment today. And Stephon Wynn, I won't say that I'm surprised, because I'm going to say this one more time for the record. Of all the players we've talked about, I wouldn't be surprised who ends up in the transfer portal. Stephon Wynn played quality minutes for the Huskers last year. He's gone. He's in the transfer portal. He's gone. Nash Hutmacher, Ty Robinson. 2 juniors leading the way. There are no seniors in the defensive line group. 0. 2 juniors, 4 sophomores. Elijah Judy, we understand. Ruquan Buckley, we understand. We've talked about the amount of time being put in with the defensive line coach and these players. Blaze Gunnerson, his growth and expanded volume with the Huskers has been very apparent. Kai Wallen, okay. Whether, in spite of coaches liking you, it doesn't always promise that you're safe. There are 12 defensive linemen. Brody Tangaloa, redshirt freshman. And then 5 freshmen. And here's the thing about this group. This group is making a bid to bypass the veterans. Cameron Linhart, Princewell, Raleigh Van Poppel. They popped. They popped in the spring game. They popped in practice. 12 defensive linemen. In a defensive set where you're lining up 3 of them in a rotation, 6 of them. 6 of them. You could invest in the future with 5 as freshmen and a 6th as a redshirt freshman, but I'm just not sure that's going to make the numbers work. The numbers are there. Like, the numbers are there. We'll go to break, but when we come back, there's one more group that we should talk about. You ready for this? Special teams. There are 4 special teams scholarships. We'll talk about that. Woo, buddy. What a journey. Again, thank you for making Locked On Huskers your first watch and listen each and every single day. It'll be a busy time, and a couple of things I wanted to talk about in closing out this episode. One, that there are 4 special teamers who have scholarships, who are under scholarships currently. Tristan Alvano, who was already a local legend, became even a grander legend in the state tournament, where he helped his team win the state title with a plus 50-yard boot, like super leg. Okay, well done. Tommy Bleekrode and Brian Buschini are the returning starters at those positions. That's 3. So you've got a punter and 2 place kickers, which I can honestly tell you is not always the standard for Division I football. A lot of coaches just aren't going to burn scholarships on place kickers. They're not going to burn several. What they also may or may not do, depending on the program, depending on the coach, and what their priority is on the special teams. But the Huskers have Marco Ortiz, who is a long snapper. And I'm not sure that if you're over numbers in scholarships that you can carry a scholarship long snapper. I'm just not sure. And so those are the numbers. Again, they've got to get to 80, from 92 to 85 just to meet compliance. And then if you really are going to improve at these positions, you're going to have to bring in more. So you're going to have to get under 85. Again, today's news and yesterday's news with Logan Smothers, Richard Torres, Stephon Wynn, Sean Hardy, and Braxton Clark. That's 5. Another 7 are having interesting conversations down at the building. At least 7. I don't know whether that's going to be 10 or 12 or 15. But if they're not satisfied with the talent in those rooms, transfer portal is how they're going to change it. And if they're standing pat, that is a statement out loud. That means they're satisfied with the talent they have in the building. They think they can win. And then if they're wrong in that, there will be consequences. There will be consequences. 2 things in closing. One, announcement today that Hunter Salas chose Wake Forest over Nebraska out of the transfer portal. He left Gonzaga, but he's a Nebraska kid. And as much as anyone will deny it, this one hurt. It would have made the sky blue and the sunshine brighter had Hunter Salas chosen to come home and play for the Huskers. He didn't. There's pain. On the other side, Keisei Tamanaga has made an announcement that, he'll declare for the NBA draft, but he will keep his year of eligibility. Bravo to him and whatever's coming. Because what we saw from him the last part of the season, we know that there's a place for him in pro ball. question is what he gets from it, what he wants to get from it, and what he needs from it. And if not, Nebraska Nation, Husker Nation, will gladly stand and applaud the return of Keisei Tominaga to this basketball program. By the way, Nebraska basketball has 3 open scholarships. Fingers crossed. Let's get some work done, boys. Thank you once again for making Locked On Huskers your first watch and listen each and every single day. We'll do it again tomorrow. We'll close with the 3 words that we love so much. Go Big Red.